Well, hi, everybody. I'm Jackie Somerville, and welcome to this episode of Jackie Straight Up, where I am speaking once again with therapist Matthew, who is here to help us unpack the complications of relationships, especially the younger man, older woman relationship. So if you want to find out more about that, stay tuned. We're going to address some of the comments, some of them a little nasty. Ooh, that showed up under some of our recent YouTube videos. And we're going to get Matthew's professional insight into some of those answers. So I'm so glad you're here to join us today, and welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jackie, for having me back.
So this one is, you will always feel old with a younger guy by your side, always, and you'll have to deal and struggle with it every single day. Too much stress till he finally gets bored with you and leaves you for a fresh young woman. That's the bitter truth no one talks about. I have
That
to
is
say, I never
please.
felt old with a younger man. I mean, I never did. I feel like they make you feel younger, in fact. But anyway, what's your take on that?
I think there is some probably a little bit kernel of truth. I do think that there are some women who, and I've experienced this too, who I started dating or whom I've talked to who do feel like they don't like to be the older one in the relationship. And typically because like societal standards, what's normal, again, quote unquote normal, is the older man and younger woman dynamic.
Yeah.
And so like that's something we've seen in society. We've has been accepted. I texted you about that movie, The Lonely Planet.
Yeah.
That was a very kind of like rom-com kind of a movie, which really didn't even discuss too much of the age gap. It was just a love story, and which I thought that was very interesting. I do see that's been again now mainstream media. It's been more accepted. But in the past, you have like movies like The Graduate, or you have American Pie, which has been much more of this like again short-term thing, but it's not normal. So going to the comment, it's like it's that comment's just reinforcing this like old stigma, which is again like you're older women and younger men, you're not as valued as a younger woman because of your age, or you can't birth children, any of these kind of things, in which also limit men and younger men.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it, I love how they say they'll finally get bored of you and leave you for a fresh young woman. The word fresh there is rather insulting. The older ones are starting to rot or something. It's kind of bad. But anyway,
But
and
it's
as we talked about last time, you can get left for all sorts of reasons. That's just one of them. So don't feel so secure just because the age gap is non-existent.
and,
That's just one factor.
and also too, it's like there's you forget the fact that also older women bring experience as well. So there's a lot more of experience than men, that like men we do enjoy compared to the quote young fresh women, which like we don't want to teach. We don't want to
Yeah.
like teach and everything. So you have someone which can actually meet you halfway. And again, it's very subjective too, because what's young and fresh? Because I'm 34, and I know a lot of women who are 34 who have experience just like me. So I know I'm not fresh. I know they're not fresh as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting comment he made. I feel like he was very upset.
I know it might have even been a woman. I'm
Oh,
not
or a woman.
sure. I have no idea. But yeah, that was interesting. And then this is another one. It was this guy said, "What absolute rubbish." This was when I was saying why I prefer younger men. What absolute rubbish. Like older men don't or want the same thing as younger men. The only problem with older men is many suffer from erectile dysfunction, which is embarrassing and frustrating. And yes, I'm sure that is embarrassing and frustrating, but he kind of missed the point of the video, which was why I prefer younger men was not their age. It was because of their attitude. And one guy had answered it in such a perfect way in that he said, "I love this video. It reminds me to shift my attitude." He was an older man, like 10 years older than me. And he was like, "Thank you for this reminder to shift my attitude, that I'm repelling people with a negative attitude, with feeling like I'm spent, with, we get whatever we are radiating on this earth, right? We're energetic beings, and we are bringing back to us. Life is mirroring what we are on the inside. So when somebody is negative, it's no wonder that their life is not great, because it's being mirrored back to them. Whatever we are on the inside, eventually finds a way to show itself on the exterior of our lives.
Mhm.
That's just the coach in me coming out. But anyway, I do find some of these comments a little bitter, which my answer to people who are feeling bitter about anything is you gotta shift your mood and your attitude, because it is honestly affecting your life more than anybody else. You can leave 10,000 mean comments. It's not going to make you feel better. It's shifting your attitude towards life and realizing that you are in full control of your life ultimately by how you see things and how you react to things. And your attitude and your mood is determining your life. Your thoughts and beliefs are determining your life. And so that's what my answer to all of these, right? It really is. Your
Yeah.
thoughts and beliefs are determining your life, honey. Is that what you want to think and believe? Because that's what's coming back to you ultimately,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and with that too, that just, you pretty much explained cognitive behavioral therapy. It's how your thoughts are impacting your emotions, your behaviors, and even your physical reactions. And so, like, when you're constantly in this loop of negative self-talk, if anything, you are inherently self-sabotaging yourself. So if you're
Yes.
constantly like feeling like, I have this erectile dysfunction, so therefore I can't be loved, then you're reinforcing that, and then your behaviors are actually going to show that as well. So a lot of these people who do leave like these very like mean comments, a lot of it, again, it's just more so like they're probably internalizing so much and then projecting it out. And but like the thing is, if you don't work on yourself, or even then, I know a lot of people have trouble with this, and I feel like a lot of the people who do make these comments will probably be against what I'm saying. It's important to see a therapist, because you may not know how to challenge your negative self-talk. You may not know how to kind of use a skill like thought stop switch, or like a thought diffusion skill, in order for you to disengage of that rumination, or disengage in any cognitive distortions. I think sometimes it's okay to ask for that support and help, because unfortunately, if you don't, you end up being on a YouTube comment, and then it's like, and then it just doesn't make you. It doesn't make you not just look good, but it doesn't make you feel good. Because
Yeah.
maybe that moment you felt good typing that out, and then now that comment's on this podcast, but what you're feeling is still there. Again, you have short-term gratification, but you still have a long-term consequence of just not
Yeah.
addressing those issues. And so I get why people do it. Again, you lash out verbally or even physically, it feels good. You release a lot of the adrenaline, and you release a lot of the cortisol. But at the same time, that's just short term. You're still dealing with all your other problems, all your shit, all your baggage. That if you saw a therapist, or if you even just talk to someone who's supportive, you can it can really help you change your mindset around and actually cultivate the life or have the relationships that you want. Because those
Yeah.
comments aren't just going to stop you and I from living our lives.
Yeah. No, I
So it's
think
like,
it's a great point, Matthew. I think, yes, to your point, see a therapist, get some help, go and see a doctor if you've got ED or any other sort of physical issues. Because, with women, older women, I always tell them who are not wanting to have sex anymore. So their marriages are, they are very difficult because he wants it and she doesn't, or whatever. Is to go and see somebody and talk mainly, maybe about hormone replacement, bioidentical hormones, and so on. There are so many things we can actually do, but we have to take the responsibility and do them. And so I also want to, that brings me to another point, which is tied to something like ED, or perhaps somebody is feeling insecure based on something else. Maybe he's a guy who thinks that you have to be tall, because I got a lot of comments under one of my recent videos. Oh, well, that's fine and dandy if you're 6 foot tall and you're this, and you look like Elvis and you've got a lot of money or whatever. But it's just not true because I
Mhm.
myself, I know there is not a single physical characteristic that carries through of everybody I've ever dated. They are also
Yeah.
radically different. Why? Because it wasn't that attracted me. It was chemistry. It was a response to their energy more than anything. Yes, everything adds up to the total package. So you've got a guy who's wealthy, he's also kind, he's also good looking, he's also tall, he's also this and that. Well, he's got a great package that unfortunately a lot of people are attracted to. And I say unfortunate, it's just a fact of life that we need to make ourselves as attractive as possible. It's biology in order to
Hmm.
attract a mate. And animals
Yeah.
do it, we do it, it's part of life. So
Hmm.
we have to make the most of whatever situation we're given. And I use this example all the time of this guy, Nick Santanastasio, who I follow on Instagram, who has one arm and no legs, and is a very successful coach and speaker and so on, who just decided to not let that shit get in the way. And yes, of course, he went through some hell trying to make peace with it, but he probably, to your point, got therapy, got help, got coaching. He was determined to not let the things he has no control over get the better of him. And guess what? He also dates beautiful women because he's
Hmm.
the kind of guy who said, I'm not going to let any of that get me down.
Yeah.
And that is a very attractive feature on its own.
Yeah.
Somebody who just says, I'm going to keep trying and I'm not going to let that get to me and I'm going to make the most of my life. That is way more attractive than any physical feature, way more.
Hmm. And I completely agree with you. And like I like you to say this too, because coming from a short guy myself, I'm 5'6". So I'm a short man, but it's like it never limited me
Yeah.
from dating. I didn't notice that because I grew up, my father was always shorter than my mom. So I thought it was completely fine until I started dating. And I was like, oh, that I guess that's the thing. But that's not
Isn't that
uni
something?
yeah,
I
but it's not
love that.
universal.
It's
Yeah.
what you grew up thinking was normal, and we all grew up
Hmm.
thinking something else is normal. It's just perception. None of it
Yeah.
is true.
It's all, yeah, exactly. And I think social media and dating apps, like I do think that can sometimes reinforce that. I have talked to women on dating apps which they wanted a tall guy, and I was like, let me just kind of shoot them a message, and it still worked out because of I it was she looked past from my height. It was, and it didn't really bother her when we were going out and all that. I think a lot of people look at social media and do this compare. And I tell my clients this, like there's like I don't want to say it's a skill, but it's something I tell my clients, like compare equals despair. Because if you're always comparing yourself to other people, you're going to always find things in which you're lacking. So then you're going to always be in
Yes.
despair and not
Yes.
noticing how what your physical traits. Like I joke around with a lot of my friends saying like I'm a short king, or like I saw from SNL, petite prince. So I say stuff like that because I think it's funny. So why not just, if this is a whole thing about my height, I just might as well be something I can use as a joke. So, and usually it doesn't become a big deal. Like I think the whole height thing, or I think your weight, or I think not being conventionally quote unquote beautiful, I do think, or handsome, I do think those are just things that, yes, like people, we are attracted to, you know, certain things society does bring, but there's also nuances too. Because when it comes with a person's personality, that outshines, or if anything, enhances the physical characteristics. So like my perception of someone who I'm dating she could be gorgeous to me, but my other buddy probably wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
Just because it's based on perception. Margot Robbie would be someone which people think is conventionally beautiful, but I know men who aren't attracted to her.
Yeah.
So it's like, and so I do think a lot of media and social media do push that a lot more, but it's not pushing the reality of what society and human beings are. Because if that's the case, only quote unquote beautiful people would be having children. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be working. We would be suffering from a population crisis. If that was the case, if it was like only attractive people, or I hear men saying when most women go for 1% of men, I'm like, that mathematically doesn't make sense with the population that we have in this society and in this
Yes.
earth. So it's just unfortunate. I do think that a lot of these kind of talking points just reinforce cognitive distortions that aren't based in reality.
Yes, they that is so true. Oh my goodness. If people only realized it is it's all becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever you believe is what you're going to see out there. You're going to
Hmm.
find so much evidence for whatever it is you believe. So you believe that you're a short guy and you don't get any luck. Boy, oh boy, you're going to get evidence to that, for that. It's like when you're in a seminar and they say to you, look for all the brown in the room, look for all the brown in the room, and you look at for all the brown, and then they say, okay, how much red did you see in the room? And you're sitting there and you're going, God, I didn't see any red. Well, there's tons of red in the room. You didn't see it because you were looking for brown. I mean, there's so many scientific examples of how we see what we are looking for and not the
Hmm.
truth. And so, someone like you who didn't grow up thinking that height would have ever been an issue, you had a perfect example of the fact that it wasn't. Well, then it's not to you, right? And if you so which is it's perception is truly reality at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
we get to decide what we focus on the good, and if anything, work on being a happy, effervescent, energetically bubbly person, because if you are a happy person and your energy is good, you don't have to rely so much on whatever society perceives to be good looking. Oh my goodness, you see people who have incredible energy and having all sorts of success in this world and in very unconventional ways.
Hmm. Absolutely. It really just comes from how you perceive yourself. I do this with myself. I do this with my clients. I do this with people that are my people my friends and family, which is the only relationship you should put as a priority is yourself.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, because that by when you really focus on you, by doing that, you are actually, helping the relationship or being a part of the relationships with other people. So I do think like if you really find yourself attractive, if you really are okay with the any physical features that you have, if you're okay and happy with your personality, that's going to be projected towards society, and then you actually attract people that you want to be with. So it really just come from how you perceive yourself. So when you do focus on like, oh, I'm short and so women won't like me, or like I don't have all this money, so women won't like me. It's like, okay, but you're gonna reinforce that. And so it's better just to be like, okay, well, I'm short. Who cares? Not a big deal. Or like I can focus like I don't have that much money. Okay, well, I'm still working hard to build my career, or I'm still working hard to get the success that I want, or I'm just working hard. Because I've always found when it comes with women, it's more so of just like the fact that you're working hard, that you're a hard worker. That's what's appealing. That's what's attractive. The money's just a bonus. But there's a lot of women who I find that enjoy that your work ethic. And also too, women do bring money into a relationship as well. So it's not. So I don't think it's really as black as white as people think. I think we also have to see like where society's changing as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Matthew. So there was this question from a guy who's 18 years old. So I didn't want to touch it. I wanted you to weigh in on this.
I think I saw that comment too.
Yeah, I'm an 18-year-old Aussie trying to get out and start a relationship with an older woman. Thank you for your videos. Your advice has really helped me understand a cougar's perspective. I was wondering, do you have any advice for someone as young as me? I noticed that when cougars say they like younger men, they're generally referring to men in their late 20s and 30s. What can I do to make myself more attractive or find women who'd be willing to go a little younger? I'm a virgin and a novice to dating, so trying to come off as mature and experienced when I'm not wouldn't work out. What do you have to say to that, Matthew? I mean, I think as it's very succinctly put, and he articulates his question very, very well, and he's very honest.
I think when it comes with that, especially with like someone who is 18, I think it just really depends on the age of the older woman too. I found in being in my 30s, it's a lot it eases a lot of older women's anxiety because, like, I have a career, I have all these things, I have experience too, so it does ease their anxiety. Now, of course, that's just from my experience. That doesn't mean like every older woman's like that. I do think if you can show that maturity, and when I talk about maturity, I talk about emotional awareness when it comes with being aware of your emotions and being and working on trying to be aware of other people's emotions. I think when we try to be aware of other people's emotions, we have to understand like it's hard because that's our own experience. I think that's where communication is essential in that. But trying to be aware of someone else's emotions, if you can effectively communicate, if you can avoid passive aggressive communication styles, and focus more on your assertive communication styles. And when it comes to assertive communication, I think it gets tied in with aggressive. Assertive communication is being direct, but also being compassionate at the same time. Um, Another thing is to have drive, is to have drive into with when it comes with your goals, your own life. To also have a community outside of your relationship, have friends, family, hobbies as well. Like I think when it comes to attraction, and especially what I've noticed when it comes to attracting older women, especially if you're a young guy you're attracted to older women, you have to work on more cultivating a good life for yourself because
Yeah.
that's going to be the attractive appeal. So he's 18. I'm assuming he may want to go to college or trade school. Like, be honest about that. Be honest with the fact that like, hey, I'm 18 years old, but I have all this I have planned for my life or and also too don't when it also comes with maturity. I do think, and I've done this before, when you try to act older than you are. So I would say don't do that. Be who you are. Like, I'm a nerd. And so I tell women on dates, like, I like things that are quote unquote nerdy. But that's probably part of my youthfulness, you know? And so I don't hide that. Show that. Because an older woman, whether dating a younger guy, they're gonna know there are probably things in which you like that she could probably look at that's kind of like I don't want to say immature, but there's definitely in your generation that would be interested in that. But that's not a bad thing. That could be a
Yeah.
great thing as well. And also too, older women learn from younger men. So there's some times in which older women like sort of learn to grab that kind of energy and embrace that youthfulness and actually and if anything, be able to embrace their own youthfulness.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
and older women can help embrace a younger man's maturity in a way. So I think it's just going to just to wrap up with his question. I really just depends on just how you're taking care of yourself and and how you communicate and just being okay with being who you are. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it. Like it's hard to say. Like he's gonna run into some issues because they could be like, you're 18, I don't want to deal with that. But then you may run into
Exactly.
to older women who will be like, well, you seem mature for your age, so let me at least
Yes.
go on a date with you.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably going to have to start out with women that are just a little bit older than him because 18 is very young, and a lot of women would be too apprehensive to go there. But I think your advice is great, and I would just add a little patience. He's obviously quite a patient guy, and I would just say keep being patient while you're working on yourself and pursuing your dreams, as you said. And also, I'm going to do a whole nother video on this about how we can use our imagination and our power of intention to bring something about without any physical action on our part. And so that's a whole nother thing that I'm going to do in terms of how do you manifest a relationship that way, using the power of intention, the power of imagination, the power of the universe, essentially. But that's for a whole nother video. But for now, I think your advice for him is absolutely excellent. And I think he's Sounds like he's going to have some fun out there ultimately. So let's move on to this question. This was from a woman, and I already did a video answering her, but it would be great to have your take on it. She's 46, split up with her ex-husband 6 years ago. Looks like she's in her mid-30s, getting a lot of attention from younger guys in their 20s and 30s. And she finds that she's attracted to younger men, feeling apprehensive about exploring it. She wants a long-term relationship and also wants to meet someone who doesn't want kids. So yeah, so I answered her and I just said, look, every relationship starts with an initial kind of hookup of some kind, an initial meeting where there are no guarantees of anything. So
Mhm.
remove the expectations and go out and date and have some fun. And if you find you're both attracted to one another, then you have a honest communication about the fact that this is just you're experimenting and just having a little fun, and hopefully you're on the same page with that. Anyway, that's the way I answered it. I don't know if you'd have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I feel like the way you answered it was amazing. I would say too, I know she said that I want a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of younger men who are into having a long-term relationship when it comes with like dating an older woman. I do think it's not something like is very intentional, if that makes sense. I do think I know for myself, it's not like I only want to be in a relationship with an older woman. It's just more like how is the connection? So I say when you kind of focus more on letting go of the outcome, and I know you've talked about this many times. I know the last conversation we talked about this too, which is letting go of the outcome of the relation, the outcome of what you want, like a long-term partner, and just focusing on the dating process.
Yes.
Um, I do think that is going to be her going to be her way to finding the love that she wants. And even if it's the love with the younger man, I think being okay with being patient, communicating. I think especially when you find that you're attracted to each other and you do have, and you don't want children, have that conversation early. Sort of like, hey, what's your perspective of having children? And if the guy says like I want children, then that's when you have to like kind of renegotiate the relationship. But
Yes, and my
well,
advice on that one, Matthew, is to not rush into those kinds of conversations.
mhm.
Enjoy having some fun first for your initial dates, and just enjoy the dating process without any expectation of anything. And it's only when you feel like you could be getting a little serious with one another that those kinds of conversations are necessary. Otherwise, I feel they're very off-putting very early on. They're very
Mhm.
presumptuous
Yeah,
and off-putting. So I think the timing of that needs to be just a little, there needs to be a little dance with that.
yeah. And then thank you for even clarifying too and expanding on that because I do think when you are at that point, and as you said prior, like it's like when you really feel like this is becoming something, I think that's when you can start having those kind of conversations. But yes, I am very big on date and take and be slow with it as well. Like I am a huge advocate of just the slow process of dating. Like I think I find a lot of people
Yes.
rush in way too much and then we get in that enmeshment. And so I do think if you really want a healthier relationship, to 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 take your time dating, to enjoy, to like, like who cares if you're dating someone for about I know 6 months to a year and you just don't know, but you're still enjoying yourself. I still enjoy that time because if it is going to be a long-term relationship, what are you rushing? And
Yeah.
also too, and I'm speaking up a little bit, but I know there is that pressure of just trying to rush things a bit because based on other people, um, you know, when it comes to dating, it's always subjective. It's like people have different, like I have friends who've been together for years and they got together right away. I have other friends who took years to get together. So I really think whatever pace you want to go, whatever pace you feel comfortable and you and your partner feel comfortable going, go that pace. But also too big on communicating. Even when you're still enjoying it, still communicate the best that you can. And then when you do feel like it's important, if you're ready to have that serious conversation, then yeah. But there is no I
Yeah.
know some people are like, well, what's the time frame? There is no time frame. It's when you're both are ready to kind of have that.
Yeah, it's a feeling. And but I
Hmm.
do think when people rush in like date one or date two, or even in their profiles, this is what I'm looking for. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh my God, it's so off-putting. If you're sitting there on the first date and you say, well, I'm not going to waste my time with a guy who doesn't want children or a
Mhm.
guy who doesn't want, he doesn't even know if he likes you yet. Now suddenly
Yeah.
you're, vice versa.
Yeah.
You
And
got to have a chance to figure out whether you even like each other and to get to really
ex
know each other and enjoy each other's company. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I really do like this person. Now it's time for me to, figure out some of those more serious issues.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think once you take things slow, you really end up finding like you learn about the person. I do think we we all go through the stages of relationship. And it's within every, so whether it's a slow-paced relationship or a fast-paced, you still go through those stages. And I do think the slower that you take, the slower that you go, especially when you get past the honeymoon phase and you're in that power struggle and control phase, like if you can really again make that maybe that honeymoon phase go a little bit longer and learn from the person and really be able to try to work on understanding the person. When you get to that power struggle and control phase, you're able to effectively communicate, so then you can actually get past that phase and go to the other kind of like phase stages in relationships as well, which is much more of like, becoming true partners and having that kind of life, which people really want to have. It's just I think people rush it because they feel the emotion and they kind of like, okay, now I got to like, we got to make this into something or else it's going to be gone. I feel like if you just take your time, you will kind of learn who the person is, and you can either walk away, knowing, hey, it wasn't going to work out, or you can continue going and seeing where this can go.
Yeah.
I just think
And
to take your time. Mhm.
that's very good. And I think it also comes with a caveat of, but listen, and when they show you who they are, believe them, because
Mhm.
oftentimes there's red flags that we choose to ignore. And so
Yes.
if you want a long-term relationship and the guy on the very first date is dropping hint after hint after hint about how he just wants to, or on the second date there's hints, or he's not calling very much and he's not paying a lot of attention to you, well, those are red flags that he's not that guy. And
Hmm.
so, move on. I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing is that, people do try to show us and tell us what they're all about early on, and we choose oftentimes to not listen to those things. And so then we think we have to have a big talk, but oftentimes the talk is not necessary because, through all sorts of hints and red flags, they've shown you who they are and what they're available for already.
Yeah. And I think that's why the slow pace is always going to be the better method, because it's just you see these red flags and you may not be ready to drop to walk
Rick,
away. But
yeah,
if you take your time and let's say you start seeing it more and more, and while you're still focusing on yourself, and you're not like, you're not trying to push this relationship to be something, you will be able to walk away feeling, okay, I made the right decision because I see all these red flags and it probably good best for me to walk away. So yeah, I do think to just to really answer, I know we talked deep about this, but to answer her question, I do think just yeah, just enjoy the process and take your time. I
yes,
think that's the benefit with older women and younger men. We have more of that time to just really get to know each other, and there isn't that kind of rush to get married and have a family. I do think that those are the benefits, especially when both people are on the same page with that.
yeah, really great. And I mean, I am excited to say that she did send me an update,
Oh,
and that she is dating a younger man and having a lot of fun and really appreciated the advice. So yeah,
good.
so that was so great to hear that she's really enjoying it and she's let go a little and just allowing herself to have fun, because that was my big thing to her. I just said it's time to allow yourself to have a little fun and see where it
Mhm.
goes. So that was
And
that was great to hear back from her.
and that's good, yes. And relationships are supposed to be fun. Always, they're always supposed to be fun.
Exactly. This person writes, sex and getting things paid for, especially if the dude is a lot younger, is probably the number one reason for a younger guy dating an older lady. Is that your number one? Was that your number one reason, Matthew? Was sex and getting things paid for?
Well, the paid for surprising me because I've paid for a lot of this stuff, which I was always me. I was always raised to do that, like you
Yeah.
cover, especially when you ask out. Um, Sex, it wasn't when I first initiated. I was more curious. When I first started, it was more of a curiosity that got to me, but I don't think a younger man's, there are younger men who do have that perspective, which is like, I always want sex, I want her to pay for things, which I'm saying you're setting yourself up for failure at that point, because I'm not saying there aren't older women who would do that. I just don't, I think they're very rare. The sex part there is very, it's intimate and it's engaging, it's very fun. So I do think that perspective, I don't know what he meant by that, but I can say like, hey, that it's an enjoyable time. But when it comes to the finances of having her pay for things, no, it's not gonna. I make jokes with my partners that I've said that to, like pay, but they always laugh at it. But usually when it comes to reality of the situation, I either I cover it or we both mutually, pay for it, or she would cover it every now and then. So I don't, yeah, I think he's probably, it could be too much online. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think yeah, that is definitely a short-term situation when you are with somebody for sex and in order for them to pay for you. That's going to be a short-term situation, whether it's an older man, younger woman, or younger man,
Yeah,
older woman.
yeah,
If those are just the two things.
yeah,
But yeah, I get his point. And he said, I've had a few relationships of this kind, and we both knew this was not going to be long term. If the lady can live with that, then to each their own. Yes, to each their own. I mean, I've
yeah,
definitely been involved with both. I've dated younger men who've paid for everything, and I've also dated younger men who haven't been able to do that. And therefore, you either go to what they can afford, or you go to what you can afford and you pay for them, because you don't want to eat at the hot dog stand down the street every night. And that's a
yeah,
choice. And that is
yeah.
clearly a short term scenario
Yeah.
for the most
Also,
part.
yeah, no, yeah. If that's, and I think you said it too when you're reading that, like they just know it's short term, then cool. But I think that's not, that doesn't mean it's a generalized, it's a generalized idea for older women, younger men. I think there are some who just have that short term fling, which is great, and I think there's others that can blossom into something long term.
Okay, so here's one. Old women and young men rarely work out for pretty obvious biological reasons. Young men haven't acquired much in terms of resources yet, which women typically find more attractive, and older women have more difficulty conceiving children, if they can at all, which is usually going to be a high priority for young men. Basically only works if it's a short-term sexual fling, and women are usually going to have a problem with that, and understandably so. So again, it's a similar sort of a take, right?
Yeah, I do think this one is he definitely generalizes. Like it's just never going to work. And I'm like, okay, well, that's your perspective. But I do think, again, when I go into dating an older woman, and it's kind of blossoming, becoming something, I do have the idea of like, I probably won't have kids. Now, of course, me bearing children, that's a whole other kind of conversation. That's just something where I don't feel that's something I would want. So I do think him saying like, well, old women can't bear children of her own. Yes, that's true. However, he's making the assumption that the younger man wants children. So I think that right there is very limited. And I know you and I text about that a little bit, about just like how sometimes that perspective is usually in sort of like when it comes to like YouTube online, from like the manosphere of men supposed to provide resources, women supposed to bear children and stuff, and I don't think it's not, I think I know that's not what the reality is, because I've dated many women who don't judge me on my resource. They know, I tell them I'm a therapist, so don't expect much, and so but they like me for many other things, and they have their own resources too. Again, I do think it's a very fixed mindset of just putting men and women in these sort of categories. Like, again, women just want men for resources, and men just want women for bearing children and having a housewife. It's like, that's just, again, that wasn't the household I was raised in. I know a lot of friends who weren't raised in that household. I have, again, friends, and I've seen couples who don't have that house, who don't have that, lifestyle too. And I've seen some who do have that lifestyle. And I just don't think his comment was again, it was very general, and I think it just limits, people. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
my take on that.
I think we're so blessed in this day and age to have more choices than ever before. As a woman, we don't need to stick to any traditional roots, and neither does a man. I mean, we were just at dinner 2 nights ago with our friends, and she's a lawyer, and he is Mr. Mom. They have 3 kids, and he cooks. He's a great cook, and he does the shopping, and he runs the kids in the household, and he's a very masculine guy.
Hmm.
And it's just the way that it is because somebody
Yeah.
had to stay home and be with the kids in their model, the way that they wanted it to work. And he's had a career. He'll probably have a career again, but it's so interesting to see. There are great choices out there for us, and we don't have to stick with the norm and the status quo. And I think my big advice for people is, as you mentioned earlier, get your head out of the computer and out of the phone and off of social media and go outside and go within. Spend some time with yourself. Get to know who you are. Be still and listen to the still small voice inside, the intuition, the real you, not the chitter chatter negative you, the real you. And we got to get still, and we got to spend time alone, and we got to spend time in nature. Otherwise, we are hooked up to a very sick thing of comparisonitis. And you can never get ahead in life as long as you do that, ever in anything. And so, really tearing oneself away and deciding, what are your beliefs? Not what anyone else tells me, not what social media tells me, not what my parents tell me, not what religion tells me, not what society tells me. What are my true beliefs? What do I want to believe as true that's the best for my life? And make that decision and run your life by those. And it's hard to apply that level of self-discipline to break away from the constant that's bombarding us. It's very difficult to do it, but it is the only way to truly get control of your own life and take responsibility and not blame any external circumstances for your situation, for your luck in dating, for anything like that. Decide what you want life to be like and create those values and beliefs.
To add on to that, especially from the male perspective, I do see, again, like men trying to tell the men what it is to be a man. I do feel like what it is to be a man is being, and that sounds cliche, but being who you are, not having other men tell you doing masculinity wrong. I think when you're doing, if they say you're doing masculinity wrong and you adhere to that, then I would say you probably lost being a man. So it's like if being a man is just being who you are, unapologetically, working on yourself, of course, but like, knowing that if you just want to stay home and cook and clean and your partner's okay with that, that doesn't mean you lost your masculinity. I do think, as you said too, is that people are very chronically online. I do think, and we are getting these ideas of who are we supposed to be based on other people's perspective and other people's perspective saying this is the right thing to do. Not the case. I think if you find the fact that like you're happy with who you are and it's not even questioning your masculinity, your femininity, but other people are telling you, then therefore they could be in the wrong. Because if you're fine with again staying home, cooking, or going out working, or watching sports, or if you want to watch movies or go to plays, like it doesn't matter. You are who you are. I do think that, again, there's a lot of this comparing and despairing, and that's gonna hurt you long term because you're
Yeah.
never gonna really be who you are. You're always gonna pretend to be someone else. And that even impacts social relationships. And you're not going to be able to have those connections that you want. And that's why people end up with connections that are very surface level. And they're not happy with those surface levels because they don't have that true identity of who they are within themselves.
Yes. Great stuff. That just gave me the idea that I think next time we chat is to address this whole thing of masculinity and some of the difficulties that men are having in today's society. And what
Yeah.
is masculinity, and how does one deal with the fact that people get labeled as toxic masculine and all of this? And I think that would be a great discussion and helpful
Yeah.
to a lot of people in the audience.
Well, that's great because one of my specialties is men's mental health.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, so
fantastic,
I'm very
Matthew.
I'm very well versed, and I have a good chunk of male clients, like boys, teens, and adult men. So I do it's part of like a passion that I have was working with men.
Yeah, because I mean, we both know that men, young men especially, are having a difficult time in today's world and are very put upon in a lot of regards. And I just want them to know to get their strength from within, not from without, and to
Mhm.
really truly believe in their own intrinsic value. The fact that you are born and you are here, you are just as valuable as anybody else. And
Mhm.
anything we choose or anything that happens to us in life doesn't devalue us at all. It doesn't take away from the fact. But we have to claim that. We have to feel whole. We have to feel worthy. And there's certain things that we can do to feel worthy. And when we feel worthy, we start to attract what we truly want in our lives. And so I think this piece of what does it take to feel worthy, and how can you do that so that you feel whole and strong no matter what is happening outside, is truly a key piece, which I would love to explore a little further.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. I think that'd be a very exciting conversation to have. Now, I think there's a lot of despair, like where men are at, and it is true, men's mental health is completely on decline. Men are very isolated, but
Yeah.
I don't want to see it as a way of like, what can we do to kind of bring men to bring traditions back, in which, if there are men, young men, myself included, who aren't traditional, but then like, what can we do as men to really kind of say like what masculinity is for us and not just have other people tell us what it is. I do think there's an individual um, understanding like what masculinity is to each and every man, and I think there could be definitely like a more cultural one as well. Of course, that's going to take time. I do think men will kind of figure that out. Unfortunately, we got to go through a lot of like that old school traditional stuff, a lot of the new toxic kind of stuff we're engaging in, and trying to find a new meaning of what masculinity is. Just like women are too. I do think women are doing the exact same thing as well.
Yeah.
So I do find, again, I'm I think I said this before, I'm an annoying optimist. And so I do think that within that kind of times where there's struggles, there is that potential change and for something hopeful and positive that gets me really excited.
Yes, wonderful. Well said. And I agree. I think it's the best of times. And I think to see it that way, I'm also a total optimist. And yeah, I think that there's lots of good things, and we will have some more answers as we go with these conversations. Yeah. And I think a lot of times the comments are a response to them feeling hurt by something that they heard and taking it
Exactly.
personally. And that's also understandable. We do that. And I think one of the greatest books ever written about stuff like that was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Did you ever read that book?
Yes, I have read that book before.
Yeah. And the four
Yeah.
agreements are just, always be impeccable with your word and never take
Hmm.
anything personally is a huge one.
It's
And
huge.
yeah,
And
and
and I would even add on too, like really, when you do get triggered by something, really start looking into why. Why is that? Because there is it's not really what the person said so much. It could be what the person said, but there's also something that you're feeling or you've experienced before that has triggered that. So a lot of those comments that you've read, I can think of things that probably in their past that they've faced that triggered them as well, whether it's interaction with an older woman or interaction with women in general, just how they perceive themselves as well.
yeah.
Especially when they start talking like disparaging about themselves, like one with the ED, the other one being short, like to feel like there is a very like there is something internalizing, and again, as I said before, they project that out. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. And just to finish up, in case people are wondering what those four agreements are, the other ones are never make assumptions and
Mhm.
always do your best. And oh man, I've always thought that was a great relationship book. It's not intended to be, but if you keep those four agreements, be impeccable with your word, never take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Oh my God, that's like great relationship advice. It's great life
Absolutely.
advice. But we are so susceptible to taking things personally and making assumptions, and it can really mess up your life. So anyway, if
Absolutely.
anybody's out there and they're having a hard time, read Don Miguel Ruiz's book about the four agreements. You'll start to feel more empowered, like you have control over your life. And it's a great, great personal development book. And it's not a long and hard read. It's a pretty easy read.
Yeah. Also, too, and Kristen Neff, Self-Compassion. I
Yes,
love that book. I love her TED Talk. I think it's very important to have, again, a relationship with yourself and then how you can have a relationship with other people. Um, I think it's great. And I think there's a lot there. She uses a lot of statistics and science in her book and her research, which I feel like does help with people who maybe have like roll their eyes when they hear self-compassion or compassion. I think they're having that scientific element to it can really help understand the importance of self-compassion and how when you engage in self-compassion, you actually are better at giving compassion to other people. So, and that ties into relationship too, because I do feel like not only I think women really are big on working on self-compassion and compassion. I do feel like men, we are very compassionate, but when it comes to self-compassion, I found in my work that where we have trouble with that. And
absolutely.
again, that's based on my work. I've worked with women who have issues with self-compassion too, but I do think with anyone, genderless, it's very big just have that in order to have those kind of rich relationships and ties into what we're talking about too.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So two book recommendations, Self-Compassion and the Four Agreements. And Matthew, thank you so much. As always, it's been
Thank you.
wonderful. And so everybody out there, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. If you want even more, make sure to check out the links below this video. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.